Racist developers tried to erase a black neighborhood, believing no one would stop them. But one woman fought back, and when she uncovered their shocking secret, they tried to silence her. They failed. What happened next will leave you speechless. The scent of rain lingered in the air as Olivia Carter walked down Maplewood Avenue, the heart of the neighborhood she had called home for nearly 3 decades. The pavement beneath her feet held generations of history, children's laughter, Sunday cookouts, and the echoes of resilience. This was her home, her sanctuary. But today, the air felt different, heavy. A sign stood where Ms. Jenkins' flower shop used to be. The bright hand-painted letters, now replaced with cold, lifeless words. Future site of Oakwood luxury condominiums. Olivia's stomach twisted as she stared at it, her heart pounding in her chest. Another one. Another black-owned business erased. Another family forced out. She clenched her fists. Not again. For months, whispers had filled the neighborhood, talk of buyouts, rising property taxes, and mysterious eviction notices. Longtime residents were being pushed out with nowhere to go. Olivia had heard their stories. Families who had lived here for generations suddenly found their rents doubled overnight. Grandmothers like Ms. Patterson, who had been in her home for 50 years, forced out with a 30-day notice. And now, the latest blow. A soft voice broke through Olivia's thoughts. "They took my shop, Liv." She turned to see Ms. Jenkins, the elderly florist, standing behind her. The once proud woman now seemed small, her eyes heavy with sorrow. "They said I had no choice," Ms. Jenkins continued, voice trembling. "That the city approved it. That I had to leave." Olivia felt a wave of anger rise inside her. She had watched this neighborhood grow. She had fought for its schools, its parks, its people, and now it was being dismantled, brick by brick, life by life. And for what? So some out-of-town developers could build overpriced condos for people who didn't care about this community? Not without a fight. That night, Olivia sat in her living room, the dim glow of the lamp illuminating stacks of papers in front of her. Deeds, city records, eviction notices. Something wasn't right. How were so many people being forced out so quickly? Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Meet me at the old church. Midnight. Come alone." Olivia's heartbeat quickened. Was this a trap? A warning? She hesitated, but then she thought about Ms. Jenkins, about Ms. Patterson, about the families losing everything. She grabbed her coat. If someone had answers, she needed to hear them. What she didn't know was that the truth was far worse than she imagined. And the moment she uncovered it, she would become a target. The old church sat at the edge of the neighborhood, its weathered bricks and boarded-up windows standing as a silent witness to time. Olivia pulled her coat tighter around her as she stepped onto the cracked steps, her breath visible in the cold night air. The wind howled through the broken stained glass, making the building groan like it was alive, warning her to turn back. But Olivia wasn't one to scare easily. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, she stepped inside. Moonlight filtered through the shattered windows, casting eerie patterns on the dust-covered pews. The air was thick with the scent of old wood and forgotten prayers. Then, a voice. "You came." Olivia's pulse jumped as a shadow moved from the corner of the church. A man emerged, a tall figure in a worn-out hoodie, his face partially hidden in the dim light. His eyes darted around, scanning the darkness as if expecting someone to be listening. "Who are you?" Olivia demanded, her voice steady despite the uncertainty clawing at her stomach. "Doesn't matter," the man said, stepping closer. "What matters is what they're doing to your neighborhood." Olivia folded her arms. "I already know. They're forcing people out, buying up the land, building condos for rich outsiders." The man let out a bitter chuckle. "It's worse than that." He pulled a folded document from his pocket and handed it to her. "They're not just buying land, they're stealing it." Olivia's hands trembled as she unfolded the paper. It was a list of properties, addresses, owner names, and a column marked "Vacant, Demolition Approved." She recognized some of the addresses. Her stomach sank. These homes weren't vacant. People were still living in them. She looked up. "This is illegal." The man nodded. "They forged city approvals, bribed officials, They even tampered with records to make it look like families had abandoned their homes. His voice dropped to a whisper. If you fight them, they'll come after you. Olivia's mouth went dry. Who are they? The man hesitated, his eyes scanning the dark. Powerful people, politicians, developers, and they don't like loose ends. A sound outside, gravel crunching under heavy boots. The man's eyes widened in panic. They found me! He shoved more papers into her hands. Take these. Expose them. Then, without another word, he bolted toward the back of the church, vanishing into the shadows. A car engine roared outside. Headlights sliced through the stained glass windows. Olivia's hands clenched around the documents as she ducked behind a pew, her heart pounding so hard she thought they might hear it. Then came the voices. Low. Menacing. She's here. Footsteps echoed through the church. They were looking for her, and they weren't planning to let her leave. Olivia's breath came in short, silent gasps as she crouched behind the pew. The men's footsteps echoed through the empty church, slow and deliberate, like hunters savoring the moment before striking their prey. She couldn't have gone far, one of them muttered, his voice low and sharp. The documents in Olivia's trembling hands felt heavier now, like they carried the weight of every stolen home, every shattered dream. She pressed them against her chest, her heartbeat drumming against the paper. She had to get out. She had to get home. A flashlight beam swept across the floor, the light bouncing off the dusty pews. Olivia pressed herself lower, biting the inside of her cheek to keep from breathing too loud. Then, a crash. The front door burst open. More footsteps. She's here, a voice growled. Find her. Olivia's blood turned to ice. They were blocking the entrance. Her only way out now was the back. But it meant moving. Her mind raced. If she waited, they'd find her. If she ran, they might catch her. But she had no choice. She couldn't let them take the truth from her. With a deep breath, Olivia clutched the papers and darted from her hiding spot. Hey! A voice shouted. A flashlight beam snapped toward her, blinding her for a second. Heavy boots thundered after her as she sprinted toward the back of the church, her lungs burning with panic. Run, Olivia. Run. She hit the old wooden door with her shoulder. It didn't budge. A chill of fear ran down her spine. Got you now, a deep voice sneered behind her. Number no, you don't. Summoning all her strength, Olivia shoved the door again. This time the rusted hinges groaned and the wood splintered open. She stumbled into the night air, feet hitting the cold pavement. A car engine roared to life behind her. Headlights flared. Then, screech. The vehicle lunged forward. They were going to hit her. Olivia threw herself to the side just as the car sped past, tires skidding against the asphalt. She rolled, the papers flying from her grip. Her ribs ached as she scrambled up, snatching the documents before the wind could claim them. The car stopped. The driver's door swung open. A shadowed figure stepped out. Olivia didn't wait to see who it was. She ran. She tore through the alleyways, weaving through fences and old backyards. Her legs burned, her breath came in ragged gasps, but she pushed on. She had to make it home. She had to protect the evidence. As she turned the corner onto her street, her house came into view, a beacon of safety in the dark. She sprinted up the porch steps, fumbling with her keys. Behind her, the car revved again. The men weren't giving up. She shoved the key into the lock, twisted, and practically fell inside, slamming the door behind her. Her body trembled as she pressed her back against the wood, her pulse hammering in her ears. Outside, the car's engine idled for a moment. Then slowly, it rolled away. They weren't finished with her. Not yet. Olivia sucked in a shaky breath and looked down at the papers still clutched in her grip. She had proof. Now she just needed a way to expose the truth, before they silenced her for good. The night stretched long and restless. Olivia sat at her kitchen table, staring at the pile of stolen documents in front of her. A single lamp cast a dim glow over the papers, illuminating names she recognized. Ms. Jenkins, Ms. Patterson, the Thompsons, people she had known her entire life, people who had been erased with the stroke of a pen. She ran a trembling hand over the files, her mind racing. They forged city approvals. They faked vacancies. They forced people out. And she had proof. But what could she do with it? She couldn't just march into City Hall. Who knew how deep this corruption went? The police. What if they were involved? These men had found her within hours of getting the files. That meant someone was watching. A wave of exhaustion hit her. She rubbed her eyes, glancing at the clock. 4:12 a.m. She needed sleep, but her mind wouldn't rest. Then, a knock at the door. Olivia's breath caught in her throat. She froze. It was too late for visitors, and too soon for trouble. Another knock, louder. She carefully approached the door, her heart pounding against her ribs. "Who is it?" she called, trying to keep her voice steady. A familiar voice whispered from the other side. "It's me, Liv. Open up." Olivia's stomach dropped. Marcus. She yanked the door open to find Marcus Reed standing there, his hoodie pulled low over his face, his expression grim. His eyes darted around before he pushed inside, shutting the door quickly behind him. "What the hell are you doing here?" Olivia hissed, locking the door behind him. Marcus was one of the few people she still trusted. He had grown up in this neighborhood just like her, always fighting for the people who lived here. If anyone could help her, it was him. But the look on his face sent a chill through her. "I heard what happened," he said, voice low. "I saw the men looking for you. They're not playing, Liv." She crossed her arms. "I know that already." "No, you don't," Marcus insisted, shaking his head. "This isn't just some greedy developers pushing people out. This goes deeper." He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen a few times before turning it toward her. Olivia's breath caught. A photo. It showed a group of men standing in a dimly lit room, shaking hands. City officials, real estate developers, police officers. But in the center of the image was a man she knew too well, Councilman Richard Graves, the same man who had promised to protect their neighborhood. Her hands tightened into fists. "He's behind this?" Marcus nodded. "He's not just behind it. He's running it." The realization hit Olivia like a gut punch. The man who swore to help them, the one who smiled at their community meetings, who told them to trust the process, was the one destroying them. Olivia exhaled sharply. "We have to take this public." Marcus hesitated. "You don't get it, Liv. These people have power. If you go against them, they'll—" A loud thud outside. Both of them froze. Marcus's head snapped toward the window. "They're here." Olivia grabbed the documents and shoved them into a folder. "We have to move. Now." She barely had time to stuff the files into her bag before... Crash! The front window shattered, glass exploding everywhere. A canister tumbled across the floor, hissing as thick smoke began to fill the air. Marcus grabbed Olivia's arm. "Go! Go!" Coughing, eyes burning, Olivia yanked open the back door, sprinting into the night. Behind her, men in dark clothing swarmed her house, their flashlights slicing through the smoke. She didn't stop running. She couldn't. The truth was out. And now they would do anything to silence her. The night air hit Olivia's face like a slap, cold and unforgiving. Smoke still burned in her lungs as she sprinted down the alley, Marcus right behind her. Every breath felt like fire, every footstep a countdown to something worse. Behind them, her home, her sanctuary, was being torn apart by men who wanted her gone. She didn't need to look back to know they were searching for those documents. For her. She couldn't go back. She had nowhere to go. Marcus grabbed her wrist, yanking her behind a dumpster, just as two dark figures emerged from the backyard, their flashlights sweeping the alley. "She ran this way," one of the men barked. A second voice, deeper, more controlled. "She won't get far." Olivia covered her mouth, her breath shaking. The men walked past, their boots crunching the gravel. Olivia squeezed her eyes shut, willing herself to disappear. Then, silence. She waited. 1 second, 2, 5. Then Marcus whispered, "Move. Now." They darted out of the alley, sticking to the shadows. Olivia's heart pounded as they ran, her mind racing just as fast. Her house was gone. The police? Corrupt. City officials, bought and paid for. The media? They only cared about stories that wouldn't upset their powerful donors. She clutched the bag strapped across her chest, the stolen documents still safe inside. This was all she had left. Marcus led her through the back streets, moving fast but careful, avoiding streetlights. "Where are we going?" Olivia whispered. "My cousin's shop," Marcus said. "He runs a print shop. No cameras, no questions." A print shop. Olivia's mind clicked. They could make copies. If they could spread these documents far enough, fast enough, Graves and his people couldn't cover it up. They reached a side street, slipping into the back entrance of a small, darkened building. The scent of fresh ink and paper filled the air. Marcus locked the door behind them. "Stay here. I'll wake him up." Olivia leaned against the counter, trying to catch her breath. She wiped the sweat from her brow, her body still wired with adrenaline. She had never been this scared, but she had never been this sure either. Then, her phone buzzed, her stomach twisted. She didn't recognize the number. Unknown caller. She hesitated. Then, slowly, she answered. A low voice, cold and calm, slithered through the speaker. "You should have left this alone, Miss Carter." Olivia's fingers tightened around the phone. "You people have taken enough from us," she snapped. "I'm not letting you erase my neighborhood." A slow chuckle. "Brave, but stupid." Her blood ran cold. "We know where you are," the voice continued, "and we're coming." The line went dead. Olivia's hands trembled as she pulled the phone away. Marcus walked back in, noticing the look on her face. "Liv, what happened?" She turned to him, eyes burning with determination. "They found us." Marcus's face hardened. "Then we don't have time." He grabbed a stack of paper, shoved it into the machine, and hit print. Page after page, the truth spilled out. If they were coming for her, she was making damn sure the whole city knew why. The sound of the printer filled the small shop, each sheet of paper a weapon against the corruption that had strangled her neighborhood. Olivia's hands trembled as she grabbed the fresh copies, staring at the undeniable truth in black and white. Eviction fraud, bribery, illegal demolition approvals. They had faked everything. Marcus was moving fast, stuffing stacks of documents into folders. "We need to hit every doorstep, every local business, every church. If we get this out before sunrise, there's no way they can bury it." Olivia nodded, her mind racing. This was it. The moment that would decide everything. Then, tires screeched outside. She froze. Marcus killed the shop lights. "They're here." Through the slats of the boarded window, Olivia saw a black SUV rolling to a stop, the same kind of car that nearly ran her down. The front door rattled. A voice outside, low, threatening. "Olivia Carter, we know you're in there." Olivia's pulse pounded. They knew her name. A sharp bang against the door. Marcus grabbed her arm. "Back way, now." They sprinted toward the rear exit, but before they could reach it, boom. The front door shattered inward, sending splinters flying. A man in a dark suit stepped inside, flanked by 2 others. His eyes were cold, predatory. "Enough running," he said smoothly. "Hand over the papers, and this ends tonight." Marcus stepped forward, fists clenched. "Not a chance." The man sighed, shaking his head. "Have it your way." He nodded to his men. One of them lunged. But Olivia was already moving. She grabbed the first thing she saw, a metal stapler, and hurled it at the man's head. It cracked against his skull, sending him stumbling. Marcus tackled the second man, slamming him into a shelf of ink cartridges. "Go!" he yelled. Olivia bolted. She burst out the back door, sprinting down the alley. She could hear Marcus fighting inside, hear the chaos. But she couldn't stop. She had to get the truth out. She ran like her life depended on it. Because it did. She ducked through streets, dodging parked cars, her breath ragged. Then, her eyes landed on the perfect place, the community center. It was Sunday morning. The neighborhood would be there for the weekly town hall. Olivia's heart pounded as she ran up the steps, yanking open the doors. Inside, rows of black families filled the space. Grandmothers, business owners, parents, kids, the people fighting to stay. She stormed to the front, gasping for air. "Olivia?" Pastor Davis frowned. "What's going on?" She slammed the papers onto the podium. "They're stealing our homes," she declared, her voice shaking but firm. "The evictions, the buyouts, all of it's a lie." The room fell silent. She held up the documents. "They forged approvals. They bribed the city. They're trying to erase us." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Then, outrage. Ms. Patterson snatched a copy, her wrinkled hands shaking with anger. "These bastards sent me a fake notice." "Councilman Graves signed this," a man in the crowd growled. "He told us he was on our side." "He's lying," Olivia shouted. "They all are." A woman near the door gasped. "They're here." Olivia turned. Through the front windows, black SUVs pulled up. She swallowed hard. But this time, she wasn't alone. The community rose to their feet. Men stepped forward, blocking the entrance. Mothers grabbed their phones, live streaming. People clutched the documents in their hands, reading the truth for themselves. The men outside hesitated. Because now, it wasn't just Olivia, it was an entire neighborhood. A voice from the back roared, "We're not leaving." And just like that, the city awoke. The tension in the community center was thick, a storm ready to break. Olivia stood at the front, her breath shaky but her stance firm. This was it, the moment she had fought for. Outside, the black SUVs idled, their tinted windows hiding the men inside. They were waiting, watching, hoping fear would silence the truth. But the people of Maplewood were done being silent. Pastor Davis stepped beside Olivia, his powerful voice ringing through the hall. "We will not be erased." Murmurs of agreement turned into shouts of defiance. "Hell no! This is our home! We're not going anywhere!" Phones were raised. Live streams began. The truth was spreading faster than the men outside could stop it. Then the doors burst open. Councilman Richard Graves walked in, his expression smooth as ever. But Olivia saw it, the flicker of panic in his eyes. He raised his hands, his fake politician's smile plastered on. "Everyone, let's remain calm. There seems to be some confusion." Olivia stepped forward. "The only confusion here is how you thought you'd get away with this." She held up the documents. "You stole from us, lied to us, sold us out." Murmurs turned into shouts. "Traitor! Liar!" Graves adjusted his suit, his calm cracking. "This is all a misunderstanding." "Then why did your men try to kill me last night?" Olivia snapped. Gasps filled the room. Graves' face darkened. "You need to watch your words, Ms. Carter." But Olivia was done being scared. She turned to the cameras, her voice strong. "Look at the evidence. Look at these eviction notices, these forged approvals. He stole our homes for profit." The crowd erupted. Marcus appeared at the door, battered but standing. "We sent the documents to every news outlet, every activist group in the city." His grin was sharp. "This ain't just a neighborhood fight anymore." Graves's jaw clenched. He knew he had lost. And then, sirens. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows. A voice rang out from outside. "Richard Graves, we have a warrant for your arrest." The room exploded into cheers. Olivia turned just in time to see police swarm inside, officers pushing past Graves's men. The councilman stiffened, his fake smile gone. "You think this changes anything?" he sneered. Olivia stepped closer, looking him dead in the eye. "It already has." The handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Outside, the city watched. Inside, a neighborhood stood stronger than ever. And Olivia Carter, the woman they tried to silence, had just saved them all.